Good afternoon and welcome to our Wellbeing Wednesday session. We're so happy to have alumni, students, faculty, and staff join us today. These sessions are a continuation of the mindfulness meditation sessions held during the past year and are a collaboration between the Office of Alumni Engagement and the University Center for Student Wellbeing. As we all try to navigate back to normal from the pandemic, we may find that we need to take a moment to focus on our own personal well-being. Meditation and mindfulness practices can be powerful ways to help us manage our self-care and wellness. During this session, meditations will be taught and practiced together. This session will focus on ways you can continue your practice in your life. I'm Audrey Tierney, the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement, and I am so pleased to be joined today by my colleagues and alumni, Dr. TJ Smith and Amber Leisure of the Center for Student Wellbeing. Before I introduce them, I have just a few notes in regards to the technical end of the session. Throughout the program, your microphones will be muted, but you're welcome to submit questions through the chat feature found on the toolbar at the bottom of the screen. TJ and Amber will answer questions at the end of the program as time permits. Now, a few words about my colleagues from the Center for Student Wellbeing in case this is your first time joining us. Dr. TJ Smith is a licensed clinical psychologist and has been engaged with meditation for over a decade, most recently leading meditation groups for Duquesne University students. TJ is currently the training director for Duquesne's counseling services. Amber Leisure has a background in exercise physiology and has taught yoga for 13 years and meditation for 11. Amber currently is the Assistant Director for Recreation Services and has a profound appreciation for the ecumenical approach to the mission of the university. Now I will turn our session over to Amber and TJ.
Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Today is the last part of a 3-session mindfulness and meditation seminar we've been doing. Today is on continuation. So the first two were on foundations and then incorporation. Really what we wanted to offer this summer was a way to kind of recapitulate and summarize what we're talking about over the last year or so that we've had the pleasure of providing these. We wanted to provide the foundation of a mindfulness and a meditation practice, and then ways to incorporate that into daily life. So right now, what we're going to be doing is looking at the ways to continue this practice after this seminar, and to really look at a way to keep it going. And that's the biggest thing. I think a lot of times mindfulness and meditation is something that takes some intention, takes some energy to keep going. But I also think it's something that's given. I think if you're here today, if you've participated in these once or twice or throughout the whole year, there's something that sort of really attracts your soul to this whole process. So I feel like continuation is really getting in contact with that part of yourself or that larger self that really wants to feel a sense of peace and connectedness. So we'll talk about how to continue it today. We end where we begin, and we couldn't not have a little quote here from Jog Kabat-Zinn. So when we're thinking about continuing, we want to think about how we're going to continue. So we're going to reference mindfulness. So his understanding of mindfulness is the awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose, in the present, and non-judgmentally. So that's really what we're going to want to continue. We're going to want to continue this in practice, whether it be sort of a 3, 10, 30-minute practice. We're going to be doing a mindfulness meditation, or whether you're just going to continue that in life itself, bringing a certain type of awareness, an awareness that is intentional, paying attention on purpose, and what we're attending to the present moment, exactly what we're experiencing right here, be it a thought, a feeling, a sensation, really focusing on what's going on in the world as it unfolds, not judgmentally, that being a way of accepting it, interacting with it neutrally, sometimes a bit compassionately. So that's what we're going to continue, are these different facets in our daily life and our practice.
Thank you, TJ. And, it's funny, we call this the old standby when we present these mindfulness presentations. We do this a lot, and this is generally the first slide that we go to. But it's also so important to just remind ourselves, what is mindfulness? What does it actually mean? And just reading the definition, thinking about each item on its own and separately, and understanding what is attention, what is purpose, what is the present, what is it really to be non-judgmentally, can sometimes be a reminder for why we practice at all. Not moving. There we go. Before we get into the discussion on continuation of the practice and continuing it, it's important to understand what your practice is. And if you're just jumping in with us for the first time, you have the definition of what mindfulness is that TJ just discussed. But then there's so many other ways to practice the act of meditation. Sometimes we use meditation and mindfulness interchangeably. Mindfulness is a more specific secular practice, but your meditation might be something like yoga or prayer or Zen meditation. So there's so many different types out there. And I invite you all to explore different types of practices that might speak to you a little bit more. I've been a yoga instructor for a really long time now and have gotten my 500 hours. So that's a pretty big chunk of time to put into the practice of yoga as far as certification goes. But yoga is so much more than just what we think of when we turn on our TV or look at a yoga magazine. It's not just stretches. That's just a minor part of it. We have the yamas and the niyamas, and that is our do's and don'ts essentially. So don't lie, don't harm others, treat yourself well, respect yourself and others, those types of practices. And then you have the asana, which are the postures, which would be a yoga class if you go to the YMCA and there's yoga and you pop in, those are the downward facing dogs and cats and cows and things of that nature. We do those to prepare the body for meditation. The whole of yoga is the wheel, and the asana practice is just one small portion of it, so that we're training our body so that we can go into a meditative state a little bit more easily because our body feels less restless. And then we have our breath control or pranayama practice, and we'll be finishing today's class with a breath-based meditation. So that will be a little taste of pranayama, but we use our breath in mindfulness practice, sometimes in prayerful practice and Zen practice, because it's always an anchor. We always have it with us. And then we have the pratyahara and the dharana, which are withdrawal of the senses and concentration. And I put those together because when we withdraw our senses, we tend to increase our concentration. So we're bringing our mind to a singular focus by first acknowledging the senses and then moving away from them so that we can focus on one thing and one thing only, which would be our concentration. And finally, you have the dhyana, which is the meditative absorption, when we're able to maintain. So we're talking about continuation and maintenance of the practice. This would be the maintenance of our individual session. And all of those things together bring us to samadhi, which is that union or integration. Yoga is a word that means or implies unity or union of the mind and the body, of the spirit and the mind, the spirit and the body. And so we're better able to attain that sense when we put all of these things together, as opposed to just doing the stretches or just doing the movement. So with that being said, I invite you to think about yoga in the sense of all of these things together and find your yoga. What is that thing that you could do for yourself that helps to bring about that sense of union? For some people, it might be walking. For others, it might be, going on long runs or hiking and communing with nature. For others, it might be sitting in mindful prayer or using mala beads or rosary beads. So whatever it is, we bring ourselves to all of these points, the yamas, niyanas, asana, dharana, dhyana, to find that singularity of mind and ultimately give us a little bit more clarity as we move throughout our day. That being said, we're going to do a very basic presence-based meditation to begin our class today as we talk of continuation. So what I'd like for you to do is find yourself in a comfortable position. Both feet on the floor, or you cross your ankles if you're in a space to do that. However you feel best, even standing. There's no right or wrong way for this. And I want you to just make sure that you're evenly distributed with your weight. So we're rocking side to side, forward and back so that we're not leaning on one side or the other. Tucking the chin in so that the ears are over the shoulders. Bringing the tongue to the roof of the mouth. Ensuring that our shoulders are right over our hips. That allows our spine to be in the most neutral positions. And then whenever you're ready, you can close your eyes. Breathing deeply in and out. And at this point, we're going to just take note of our surroundings. What does this space sound like? What does it feel like? Take a deep breath in and notice how your body feels, your arms, your core, your legs. Notice how it feels to inhabit a space. Now moving away from the physical sensations, just pay attention to where your mind is. Are you focusing on one thing? Is your mind wandering from thought to thought? It's okay if it does. But pay attention to where your mind does go. You're thinking about a to-do list, maybe something that happened yesterday. Just observe the mind. And then gently bring it to the breath. Try to keep your focus on the inhale and the exhale. If your mind wanders, gently come back to the breath. If it helps, you can say inhale and exhale in your mind as you breathe in and out, or in, out. It helps to maintain your focus. Try to keep your mind here for a moment. At this time, I want you to bring it back to the sense of self, the sense of your body sitting in space, the sense of the room. Wiggle your toes and fingers. Notice how it changes how you feel in your hands and your feet. Muscles that might be working up in your arms and legs as you wiggle your fingers and toes. And then you can open your eyes when you're ready. That was a very basic presence-based meditation. And we did this for about 3.5 to 4 minutes. So it hopefully you feel a little bit better after going into that space. But all you do is focus on the present moment, your body, where you are, what you hear, tuning into all 5 senses, and then bringing it to the breath. And if you've got 3 or 4 minutes in the middle of a stressful day, it's something that you could give yourself. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's really just the act of being present, being in the here and now, and using all 5 senses. So there's no right or wrong way. There's no formula. Just be present.
Just do it. I'm thinking the old Nike saying too, us continuing this, a continuation is to just do it, meaning 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but just that act of practicing formally or just in the moment is all you need to do.
It's such a good slogan. Is it still?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's not.
I think it is. I don't know.
It probably is. It's so good though, because sometimes I find myself in these spaces where I know I need to do something. I know I should do something, but I just can't. Maybe it's exercise, maybe it's mindfulness practice. I know maybe it's laundry, dishes, or something along those lines. But have you ever been in that space where you just can't?
Oh yeah.
And so the phrase "just do it" is so motivating to me. Okay, just force yourself. It doesn't matter if you don't feel like it right now. All you need to do is try one thing, stand up,
Yes.
walk to your mailbox. Sometimes days like that. Especially, this is our fast week, so all the new
Mhm.
students are coming in. So when I get home, I'm just like, I'm gonna lay here for a minute, and it turns into it's certainly difficult to maintain a habit or a practice. And when we practice mindfulness or meditation, it's no different than exercise or creating other healthy habits. It is a habit as well. And we want to get into that space where it becomes easier and we're maintaining that mindfulness space where we do it automatically, or we're able to put that space between our emotions and reacting to whatever's happening. But it doesn't come easily. But it should get a little bit easier as we practice more often and we think about mindfulness more often. So I'd like to discuss the 6 stages of change to start this, and we're going to come back to it several different times. But the 6 stages of behavioral change regarding anything from exercise to smoking cessation to mindfulness, it all comes down to pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and termination. And termination might not necessarily happen, but that's the last stage. So, our pre-contemplation and contemplation phase, we're already beyond that because we're here in this class today. But that was maybe before you showed up to your first meditation class and thought, maybe I need to be a little bit more mindful. Maybe I need to incorporate some de-stress activities into my day because my stress levels are rising. Something made you realize that you needed to come to this or to show up. And before that, then you prepared yourself. Maybe you signed up, you registered, or you just read a little bit more about meditation so that you knew what you were going into. And then action would be showing up and being here and doing that over and over again until it becomes a habit. But once it becomes a habit, you enter the maintenance phase. So this is when what we're talking about today, that phase of you're no longer forcing yourself to go there. It just happens a little bit more naturally. And you're just continuing. It's like a flywheel. Now you've got that momentum going. Maybe you're feeling motivated. Maybe you're not. But it's something that you just know you should do because you've been doing it. And then finally, we have termination. And that would be where, you decide you don't want to do this anymore. You've gotten what you needed. But we would hope that you wouldn't make that decision. Termination is more for other behaviors that we're trying to change. So how do we change our practices from the action phase into the maintenance phase? Or how do we change an action into a habit? That is such a good question because I work in a gym, I'm in a gym right now, and people are trying to get back into it and get themselves in shape and get ready for the new semester and just get off some of that energy that we've had pent up from being on lockdown for so long. But how do we make that a habit and not just some fluke week where we felt really motivated? There's some studies that say it takes 21 repetitions. There are other studies that say it takes 47 repetitions of something to make it a habit. But the truth of the matter is that it's up to each individual. There's no magic number. There's no magic thing that you can do, ritual that will make it a habit that you do all the time without thinking. And when you're in that maintenance phase, it's not always motivation and easy, and it just happens naturally. So, we have that maintenance phase, but it's the most difficult. There are studies that say that most people, when they drop off of a plan, whether it's healthy eating, exercise, mindfulness, when you get to the maintenance phase, that's where you start to drop off more often than in the action phase, those first couple weeks. And that is because we relapse. we stop being so motivated. Whenever let's take weightlifting as an example, just because I'm a gym person. So maybe the first time I bench, I can only do the bar, that's 45 pounds. And then after about a week or so, I can start adding 5 pounds on each side. So now I'm lifting 55 pounds. That motivation gives us a temporary high that motivates us to go the next time and practice again, because you're seeing your gains, you're seeing your progress. What do you do when you get to the point where you just can't get stronger? We all got a limit, unless we take steroids or something like that, and then we surpass those limits, but I wouldn't recommend that. But we all have our limits, and we all have that space where we plateau. If we set ourselves a goal and we reach that goal that we want to maintain at that space, how do we do that? Because in the 6 stages of behavior change, there's also a space between maintenance and termination. That's the relapse phase. So people jump from relapse back to pre-contemplation, or back to contemplation, or back to action. And so sometimes we see in those 6 phases, people will relapse, they'll stop practicing for a while, maybe they'll stop coming to the gym, or they won't be practicing mindfulness for a week or so at a time. And so we jump from relapse back to action, and we just cycle through that over and over again. And oftentimes that's because we lack the motivation. We don't see the benefits or the gains. So for practicing mindfulness, we start to see that we're noticing the things around us more often. We're feeling more gratitude as we go throughout our commute or our interactions with other people. And so we see that benefit. And so we're motivated by it. But then once we start to lose that motivation because we're no longer seeing those big benefits, that's where we're in danger of relapsing or not being able to continue that maintenance phase of practicing mindfulness every day.
I'm so glad you were pointing out those phases too, that you kind of pinpointed, in this continuation, where the focus may need to be. The focus is in the maintenance, relapse prevention, and then relapse, and then post-relapse too. So that a relapse of a day, a relapse of a week or 2 weeks is much different than a relapse of 2 months, a year. All are manageable. It's just the longer one relapses, the more inertia to, starting up that behavior is in any area, but definitely meditation. I know myself, I've a lot going on this week, and I'm going on vacation next week, so I didn't get to do my normal workouts. So it was kind of a planned relapse, but then the anticipation is I'll come back to it in 2 weeks. So that 2 weeks off is it's a manageable amount of time. But I know that upon coming back, if there's the post vacation, I need a vacation, that I could push it off another week or a month. So I'm giving that metaphor and using what you're talking about with exercise, just to kind of underline the fact that it is the understanding that the motivation really is that interplay between keeping it going and maintaining. And then if there is a relapse, picking yourself up and then going forward again, making the, yeah.
And then so I'm so glad you said that, because another way to look at that relapse phase is just an opportunity to return to the practice. When we do on a micro level, when we're practicing breath work and just focusing on the breath, our mind wanders and we gently bring it back to the breath. So on a micro level, it's the act of the breath over and over and over again, and that is the practice. But on a macro level, when we look at our whole practice from January 1st to December 31st, we're constantly coming back to the practice and coming back to the practice. The gaps in between might be shorter or longer, but it's the constant act of coming back.
Yes, that's it. We're practicing that today. We've practiced it this whole time, and that's something that one can continue and take with them too. And the nice thing is getting in the groove is really fortunate when that habit or that practice is set, and then it's almost like when you don't do it, then you're seeing either the negative effects or the lack of the positive effects too. And that's the nicest place to be once practice is instilled, is not so much I should do this as much as, oh, I didn't do this today, I'm not feeling as well, or I didn't do this today, yeah, I'm a little bit more stressed out. So that's nice too, is just thinking about that as a practice. I'm almost just picturing I played baseball when I was younger. just swinging the bat, 5, 10, 1,000 times, getting it right, if that's what meditation's like. So we're looking at avoiding the lost momentum, and some pointers would be: one, set small goals. So that just do it is not just do it, meditate for 40 minutes. It's just do it, whatever that goal may be. 5 minutes, 30 minutes a day, if you like those better, 3 days a week. It's sort of setting a manageable goal. And, part of my job is working with students or folks who might be a little bit sad or depressed, which really affects one's motivation. And in looking at ways to what they call behaviorally activate, basically meaning to sort of get more out and do more in your schedule, it's always you want to set a realistic goal, because there's nothing more that can destroy momentum more than you set a huge goal, you don't do it, you feel worse, versus if you set a manageable goal, you do it, you feel a little bit better. Treat yourself. Definitely sort of something we've gone over here before. So in the treat too, it would be kind of letting yourself know and acknowledging when you have done something well and you have kept that goal going. But you want to acknowledge and validate that too. I love the ice cream cone that Amber had added to this slide. Treat yourself, you deserve it. And I think in a way that meditation itself becomes a treat. Now I'm really mindful that I want ice cream right now, to sort of put that out there, looking at that, looking at the nice sunny day out there. It's hot today. I'm like, no, maybe some ice cream later. Knowing the obstacles, that would be a big thing too, would be knowing what is going to get in the way, what is going to take your motivation down. Is it time of day? Is morning more difficult to practice than night than morning? Is trying to put it in too big a chunks, is that's what's doing it? Are you, is it an internal obstacle? Are you just really trying a little too hard? Are you really being strict on yourself? Is it the internal dialogue that might be getting in the way? Is it like for a lot of us that our schedules are so busy, is it really difficult to schedule time? Is it when time's scheduled, really it's scheduled in a way where people still have access to you? The kids are coming in, you're getting phone calls. So really it would be just as a way to sort of see, okay, I might be sort of drifting in the relapse here, but what is getting in the way? What are these obstacles to maintaining the momentum? And then from that, formulating an action plan. And that very well just being, okay, I think I can maintain this small goal of meditating 10 minutes a day. I'm going to have to meditate in the morning because that's when no one bothers me. And I'm going to try to do this for the next 2 weeks, giving myself Saturday off or something. So in that way, you're formulating an action plan that can keep it going, because, momentum basically is keeping up the habit, keeping up the practice, riding that wave, and then also knowing what to do if you fall off of it.
I especially like the treat yourself portion of this, because, if we set ourselves a goal, even if it's small, and we are able to maintain that goal or reach that goal, then we deserve some sort of external reward. I'm an external rewards person. I like seeing the gold star on the charts and graphs and everything like that. So, having some idea of what, if I reach this, then I will finally take that trip that I've been wanting to go on, or buy something, or, what have you. So, but as far as small goals, I'll just share a short anecdote. Oh, about 3 years ago, I dropped out of the mindfulness and meditation practice for no real reason. I just fell off and got into my own cycle of doing other things, not really thinking about it much. And then I realized I need to get back into it because I'm going to be teaching it again. And I would be a very big hypocrite if I was teaching and not practicing. So my small goal was the Liberty Bridge. When I was on my commute to work in the morning, I would take the opportunity to be mindful of the act of crossing the Liberty Bridge. Shouldn't take that long. Sometimes it really does, but coming inbound downtown, it's usually not so bad in the morning. And it felt so nice to jump back into it. And it wasn't a huge thing. It was something I went every day driving on Monday through Friday. It took less than 5 minutes to cross the bridge, but it made the biggest difference in my day. I got to work and I was a lot more focused. I was a lot more calm. And as I was coming in the door, I wasn't swirling around in thoughts of my to-do list and what I need to do at this hour and this hour and this hour. And I found it to be incredibly beneficial. And it was something so small as crossing the Liberty Bridge and just being mindful of the view, of the cars around me, of the feeling of driving, what the weather was doing for the day, how the sun hits the clouds, or how the clouds obscure the UPMC building, all of those things. So that is just one example of setting a small goal relating to mindfulness and how it can really benefit. And I didn't really need to treat myself for that one because it was so nice. It made such a big change in my day.
That's such a nice example. I can't help myself. I appreciate that you took the liberty to practice meditation on the bridge. I had to throw a pun in there.
It wouldn't be a full class with both of us together if you didn't throw in a bad pun.
It wouldn't be.
But I didn't mean to say bad.
No, it's okay. It's part of it. I bought a shirt this weekend that said "Dad jokes more like rad jokes." So that's, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
So I had to interject. So yeah, taking inventory, talking about a beginner's mind approach, approaching the world, what you see on the screen, if you are lucky enough to encounter that, nature, encountering everything as a beginner's mind, something that you're doing for the first time anew. You know, imagining if a small child sees something for the first time, they're filled with wonder, they're filled with amazement. In a similar way, when we're trying to continue the practice, is trying to cultivate that sense of amazement, that sense of wonder, that sort of is the passion, it's the fuel that will keep, the practice going, for one. In the evaluation of the ordinary, really just looking to see what we can find in everyday life that's almost like the hook that takes us in. I think a lot of times there's like the internal hook, this is what we want to do, this is what I want to do, but in a way, it's a lot of times life itself might carry us along and help us to practice meditation. When we're sitting there on a hot summer day at the beach, I'll be at the beach next week, I'm excited. Or when we're sitting there at a cool fall day, watching the leaves fall, that in those moments, it's a call to meditate. And it's an extra practice, meaning it can be outside of the practice that we do daily, for 5 or 10, 20 minutes. It's a practice that happens right then and there. And it allows us to take inventory of our lives, inventory of our meditation practice, to see where we want to go with it too. And that's really why it's a heartfelt practice. It's one of passion. It's something that we can continue, but as long as sort of we can kind of visit that inner space to see what, how we may find it meaningful in those moments.
And it also ties into last month's practice of incorporation into our everyday lives. So when we take the time to evaluate the ordinary, then we notice things that we may not have noticed before. But it also gives us that opportunity to take inventory of those spaces in our day where we might feel that we're on autopilot. And rather than ride along on autopilot, and sometimes that's okay. It's not, you don't have to be 100% present 100% of the time. But maybe pick and choose some of those areas where we tend to be on autopilot and take note of how it's different when you pay attention to it. If I'm doing the dishes, what does the water feel like? Maybe I'm paying a little bit more attention to the task at hand. Maybe I do a better job at doing the dishes when I'm being present with it. But we have all those spaces where we find ourselves on autopilot. And it is a good way to incorporate the mindfulness practice into our days so that if we do jump off the rails and lose our formal practice for a week or so, or even longer, it allows us to still work in some mindfulness practice in everyday life. So it's important to keep up the practice that you currently have. And I like to talk about integration of mindfulness in our everyday lives, because we find ourselves more in our everyday lives than we do in our daily practice. But if you do have 30 seconds, give yourself square breathing or focused breath. If might be the middle of the day or it might be your daily practice, that's okay. So taking the time aside, even if it's only for 30 seconds to practice, can give you so much more clarity as you move throughout that space. And it's a good reminder to take note of when you might be swirling around in that stress response and you don't really notice that you're on autopilot or you're no longer present in the space. It can give you more clarity, even 30 seconds. Square breathing is where you inhale for 4 counts, hold it for 4 counts, exhale fully for 4 counts, and hold that empty breath for 4 counts and continue. And the idea is to fill your lungs all the way with air, hold it so you're able to absorb more oxygen. And then you exhale fully so you get rid of all of that residual air in your lungs. And your body has to hold that empty breath so it raises the heart rate, brings about a slight stress response. And then as you inhale again, you're filling your lungs with new oxygen. So that gives us more oxygen in our systems than carbon dioxide. Helps us to think more clearly. It also helps energize us, because when we were holding our empty breath, it's a little bit stressful. So we feel a little bit more energized. Great thing to do in the middle of the day if you start to feel yourself slumping. But if you have 30 seconds, square breathing or just focus on the breath for that short period of time. And it will be a good way to just incorporate mindfulness into your day if you don't have the time anywhere else. Perhaps you have 3 minutes. You could do progressive muscle relaxation or a 3-minute meditation on breath. Progressive muscle relaxation is where you start at the top of the body and work your way down, or the bottom and work your way up. And you just focus on each muscle group and relax it. You might focus and tense the muscle and then relax, or you might just think about that area and then try to make it heavier. And that can help relax the body because we hold tension in different parts of our body. Let's say you have 5 to 10 minutes. Now you can get into a lot more practices that are available online, or you could develop your own that works for you. Open monitor meditation is basically how we began this class today. We were watching our thoughts, listening to the sounds around us. We were taking in the temperature. What does the air smell like? What does it feel like to be here right now? And you're just monitoring the present moment and your existence in that moment. Or you could check out headspace.com or go on YouTube and type up guided meditation, or Spotify has a lot of different chakra-based meditations or muscle-based meditations or goal-based meditations. Spotify has a goal series. So if you want to think more positively, there are guided meditations for that. And then there are just meditations where they walk you through being in calming spaces and what it would feel like to be calm in those spaces. So you could find those, and usually they range from anywhere from like 10 minutes to an hour. Sorry, I have a little bit of a cold. And then finally, walking meditation. If you've got 5 to 10 minutes, go for a walk. That'll be energizing, keep your muscles active. It'll raise your heart rate, raise your blood circulation. And it feels good. In walking meditation, you're just focusing on what it feels like to walk, how your body feels in space, the atmosphere, maybe the space around you, the nature that you're walking in if you're walking outside. And if you have more than 15 minutes, the options are limitless. You can absolutely anything.
I like that saying, keep it up, because I think it's both an intention, like almost say, keep it up, but then it also is very much like a validation, encouragement, like keep it up, you can do this. So I welcome you to have that be and not an actual mantra, but something that you keep in your head. Is just keep it up, the intention and both validation there too. You can do this. You know, You can hear mine or Amber's voice in your head if you want to take us with you to go. Just saying, keep it up. You can do this. But I appreciate those different ways to keep it up and keep it going.
So what would you suggest, TJ, if you run out of motivation, you jump off the mindfulness practice wagon? Would you have any suggestions for like a mantra, or what would?
Yeah. For me, it would be the taking inventory. That a lot of times, like taking out the garbage is something I have to do. Even as mindfully as I do it, it's just something you have to do. Whereas I feel like meditation and mindfulness is something that I want to do deep down, and there's just 1,000 things that get in the way. So for me, when I fall off the wagon, it's always about just getting into that space that I need this, I want this, so that the surface I have to kind of melts away. And that's how it begins. So that's really, I guess, connecting with my passion. So I think the first thing is that recognition. I relapse, I fall off the wagon. And the second thing is that acceptance of it. And the third thing would be the intention that I do want to keep this up. There isn't another should. It's something that is helping me. It's helping my well-being. I'm feeling better. And then I would just sort of do just about anything that had helped me the best before, and really finding a match. So for me, it's the mantra-based meditations is really what I find a match with, in terms of finding a sense of, more of a sense of peace during meditation. So in trying all these different ones out, it's coming back to what resonates the most for you, as opposed to doing something that you think you should or shouldn't be doing.
I appreciate that response, because there's such a difference between wanting to do something and having to do something, and how we feel about it and how we approach it.
Yes.
I have to better, then it feels like a chore. But if I want to eat better, then it's a fun adventure to try new recipes. So.
And get the people around you, on phone, text, or if they're, with you, to sort of, they're the ones that may remind you as well. I'm just thinking my kids would rather have me meditate than not meditate, because then I won't be grumpy.
That's true.
All right, we're going to do a 5-minute breath-based meditation to take us home now. So find a relaxed and comfortable position. Keep your back upright, not too tight. Hands resting wherever they're comfortable. Close your eyes if that's comfortable as well. Notice your body from the inside. Noticing the shape of your body, the weight, touch. Let yourself relax. Become curious about your body. Seated here. Sensations of your body. The touch, connection with the floor, the chair. Relax any areas of tension or tightness. Just breathe. Soften. Now begin to tune into your breath in your body. Feeling the natural flow of breath. Don't need to do anything to your breath. Not long, not short, just natural. Notice where you feel your breath in your body. Might be in your abdomen, might be in your chest or throat, or in your nostrils. See if you can feel the sensations of breath, one breath at a time. When one breath ends, the next breath begins. Now, as you do this, you might notice your mind start to wander. You might start thinking about other things. If this happens, this is not a problem. Very natural. Just notice that your mind has wandered. And say, thinking or wandering, in your head softly. And then gently redirect your attention right back to the breathing. Just noticing our breath. From time to time, getting lost in thought and returning to our breath. See if you can be really kind to yourself in the process. And once again, you can notice your body. Your whole body is seated here. Let yourself relax even more deeply. And then offer yourself some appreciation for doing this practice today. Whatever that appreciation might mean for you. And finding a sense of ease and well-being for yourself. This day, week, month, and years as you continue the practice. When you're ready, feel free to open up the eyes. Take in some of the surroundings.
Well, thanks, Amber and TJ, for a wonderful session today. Not seeing any questions in our chat at the moment, but I hope that these sessions have helped everyone through this time. I know they have helped me. Before we sign off today, I would like to share that today is actually TJ's last day at Duquesne. He is starting a new adventure and will be opening a solo private practice in the North Hills. We will miss him so much, but we wish him well with his new endeavor.
Thank you so much. This has been one of the best parts of the past year, honestly.
It certainly has been a bright spot in a very long year.
I appreciate that. And if anyone's ever in the North Hills or know anyone in the North Hills of Pittsburgh, drthomasjsmith.com. I'm Thomas J is TJ, but I'm looking forward to that. But I'll definitely be missing Duquesne. But as an alumni, I carry Duquesne with me in my heart, as you all know. So I definitely appreciated the past year.
I appreciated working with you this past year on these as well. It's been a really great collaboration.
Honestly, been the best.
Yes. Well, thank you both so much. And thank you all again for attending today's Wellbeing Wednesday. Be sure to watch for a follow-up email that will include the link to register for all of our upcoming virtual events. Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe. And as always, go Dukes.